Delighted to say we're joined by Kenny Cunningham to discuss the match last night. Kenny, how are you getting on?
Yeah, morning lads, all good.
That is the type of game that I suspect you really enjoyed last night.
Not necessarily, Owen. I must admit, I'm guessing you're alluding to the fact I enjoy a good defensive encounter. Two teams who are set up well defensively. But to be honest with you, I didn't necessarily think that was the case last night either. I thought at times it was actually a poor quality game, kind of from an attacking and a defensive point of view. Kind of game was very fragmented, wasn't it? No real kind of rhythm to the game. A lot of individual errors on kind of misplaced passes, kind of poor decision making. Probably the occasion, I'd suggest, maybe got to a number of the players, and it took the game an awful long time. Maybe there was a period there, second half, and you felt as if there was a bit of a game on for the short period of time. But either side of that, I thought the game was kind of very kind of fragmented, littered with mistakes. But obviously, as with every game, regardless of the quality, some key moments in the game in terms which decided the outcome.
There was always a possibility that Bayern Munich were, after hammering Barcelona 2 rounds ago, that the Lyon game was just a little bit of a tune-up for the final, and that they could have come out of the blocks last night roaring. Didn't happen, and that might be one of the biggest regrets that Paris Saint-Germain might have going into this off-season, was that they had Bayern Munich on a day where they actually weren't great.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I think you're right. We're looking for that quick start that we've seen a lot from Bayern, high energy levels, kind of high press, snapping into tackles. It didn't really happen. So they almost invited PSG into the game, which is kind of what happened. PSG were probably, I wouldn't say the dominant team as the first half progressed, but they kind of got into the ascendancy. And in that period had some huge moments in terms of getting in the opening goal. I'm telling you, Mbappe had a couple of decent situations on the edge of the box earlier and didn't quite make the best of him. He tried a reverse pass from Bernard for me when he should have been looking to get on his right foot and shoot, and just didn't make the best of a few situations. Then, of course, it was the big chance for Neymar. It was actually a double chance on when he was slid in. He had the shot with his left foot, which Neuer saved. There was the one after that for me, which was actually the bigger chance. All he had to do was square the ball to Di Maria, and he would have put the ball into an open goal. Instead, he allowed Neuer just to, extend his left leg and kick it away. And then, of course, there was the Mbappe chance not long after that when they dispossessed Alaba in the box. So they were the big moments, obviously. And I genuinely think if PSG had got their noses in front, that's exactly, there was a fair chance they probably would have gone on. They would have been favourites to go on and win the game, because the structure of the team is kind of set up to kind of protect the lead. We've spoken how good they've been defensively, out possession, the midfield three, back four, how they've sat into their shape and defended their penalty box really well. So they really would have been set up then with that 1-0 lead to play that kind of counter-attacking football, which they like to do. And it would have been a difficult road back for Bayern the way they were playing after that. But of course, they didn't take those chances. The opportunity passed them by, and Bayern Munich second half eventually began to impose themselves on the game.
Was that exactly what Hansi Flick would have wanted at halftime, Kenny? Because a lot of the pre-match talk was about how the pace of Kylian Mbappe is finally going to exploit the high line of Bayern Munich. Was it a reaction to that sort of idea that there might be an Achilles heel exposed?
Well, the Achilles heel was there. Unfortunately, it was only on the pitch for about 25 minutes when Boateng came off. If I was a Bayern supporter, I would have been breathing a sigh of relief when he came off the pitch and Sula came on. Sula, for me, is a far better player, better athlete, similar type of player, but just a better all-round player. If it hadn't been for his injury, he would have been starting ahead of Boateng. So for me, that was probably the best thing that could have happened to Bayern. But they still had those opportunities. If you think of the Di Maria chance, I think he came from PSG playing out from the edge of their penalty box. The ball was played up to Neymar, who sucked in Boateng, flicked it around the corner into the space from Mbappe, who was causing Kimmich problems. And I'm a huge fan of Kimmich, but very few players can deal with Mbappe one-to-one in those situations when there's kind of space to run into. And he broke down the left-hand side and eventually teed up Di Maria. Unfortunately, he took it on his right foot. He was never going to score off his right foot. So there was a couple of small opportunities down that side of the pitch. But it was interesting. Bayern never made any accommodation for that. It was interesting listening to Flick prior to the game. He was saying, no, there'll be no modifications to our style of play. We'll keep the high line. We'll continue to press. And I've no problem with that, but I know we've had a conversation before. For me, it's when you hold the line. It's not so much kind of keep it squeezing and getting up the pitch, is how long you keep the high line and when you drop in. So they do leave themselves exposed, but, you know, they kind of weathered the storm. They got away with it last night. PSG just went clinic enough, ruthless enough when those opportunities presented themselves first half.
And that is...
How good are this Bayern team? How good are this Bayern team, Kenny?
Well, the scary thing is, Ger, they're going to get better. That team that's been on the pitch the past two games, for me, that's not their strongest team, even with the players they have. Like I said, Sula, for me, makes that team stronger at centre-half. I'd have Pavard in at right back and Kimmich in the holding midfield position ahead of Thiago. I'm not a huge fan of Thiago in holding midfield. I don't think he's a good enough defender. So for me, to actually move the pieces around in the team, Jay, you actually get a stronger outfit. I'm a big fan of Pavard, good defender up and down the pitch, great at set pieces at both ends of the pitch. Kimmich for me is more of a natural defender, a pivot in that holding area of the pitch. And then when you look at Sane, who's got to come into the team, and potentially that forward line of Lewandowski and flanked by Gnabry, Coleman, you could even argue Sane in a number 10, like a supporting three for Lewandowski up front, and then you're struggling to find a place for Muller in the team, maybe in a deeper position. So it's pretty frightening potentially what they can put on the pitch next season, and they don't actually have to go and spend a penny, Ger, for me. They just have to move the pieces a little bit around the chessboard, and then those younger players you're talking about, like Davis, is only going to get better. These players are only improving. Young players are developing. Goretzka as well, and the age profile is fantastic, kind of mid-20s. So this group of players is only going to improve, develop, and get better over the next kind of 2 to 3 years.
We had been hearing about how it was going to be Liverpool who dominated European football for the next couple of years after the last 24 months, essentially. But this Bayern team are going to go toe-to-toe with them, obviously.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, no doubt. You can argue about potentially Liverpool and Bayern dominating their respective domestic leagues, fair enough, although I'm sure the kind of Manchester City, etc., Chelsea have something to say about that. But in European competition, no, you're absolutely right. I actually think there's even a couple of other, even the likes of Inter Milan, I think. I look at them and how they're progressing under Conte. I think that's a club on the up as well in European competition. The players they're looking to bring in, talking Messi going there, Hakimi, who played at Dortmund last year, he's gone into Milan. So they're improving. They got one of the best partnerships in world football, Martinez and Lukaku. If they can keep that strike force together. So they potentially are going to get stronger in European terms over the next couple of years. We'd like to think there's going to be some kind of reaction over in Spain, but that might take a bit of time, particularly with kind of Barcelona. So over the next kind of 22 to 3 years, it certainly won't be a dominance, but you certainly will have Liverpool and certainly Bayern Munich going toe-to-toe for the big competition, the Champions League. It'll be great to see because some wonderful talent, attacking talent, you'd have to say in particular, scattered amongst both those sides. It'd be fantastic to watch.
It's very interesting when you look at the last two Bayern Munich wins in the Champions League, Kenny, and you look at the managers that Jupp Heynckes and Hansi Flick essentially bookend a fairly gilded list of managers that they've gone for. Like Heynckes was stepping down, making way for Pep Guardiola. They also brought in Carlo Ancelotti. To a lesser extent, Kovac was brought in, not on the same level of profile, obviously, as the other two fellas, but still on a higher level of profile than Flick would be. It's a real lesson that actually Bayern Munich need to listen to what the players are saying about their manager rather than going for the big name in the world, rather than installing a celebrity coach, so to speak. Not that Pep Guardiola was ever a celebrity coach.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point, Owen. And when you get, wouldn't be a huge person to continue looking at stats and kind of back up an argument. But like you say, you look at Guardiola's track record when he was at Bayern Munich, and indeed when he's gone to Manchester with the amount of money that he's had to spend there. But the argument becomes a little bit stronger in terms of Guardiola's ability to win the greatest club competition, the Champions League, in terms of maybe his qualities. He's a fantastic coach, we understand that. But in terms of just getting them over the line and winning that top competition. And you're right, I think people get too fixated with manager's profile, previous history, what he's done, how well he presents himself, profile, all talks good game, all these types of things, Owen. It's the basic fundamentals, really, which I think still apply for who are the top-class managers. And I think it's kind of communication, people skills, player management, I think is still key. And you're hearing those kind of vibes coming off the Bayern Munich players at the moment now when they speak about Flick. I don't think he's revolutionised in terms of their style of play, how they actually play. And it's actually very similar to how Guardiola, that kind of high intensity, kind of high press, they've kind of got back to that. In terms of the football, the kind of patterns of play which you see now, lads, that's kind of very reasonably similar to what you saw with kind of Guardiola, kind of possession-based game, looking to play through the thirds. But clearly he's kind of got into the psyche of a couple of the players, and particularly key players within that team, the senior players. And he's been able to kind of get them all on board in a very short period of time, lads, turn the whole ship around and get it moving forward. So it's just those kind of people skills, those, I don't know, human qualities, if anything else, which this lad actually possesses. And the fact that he hasn't got so many domestic titles or trophies in his cabinet, for me, shouldn't be a huge factor. It shouldn't be as big a factor as it seems to be with other managers.
What happens over the next little while with Paris Saint-Germain is also going to be very interesting. Are you worried, if you're a PSG fan, about the immediate future of Kylian Mbappe, of the immediate future of Neymar? Because this was their real opportunity. They've proven a few doubters wrong on this campaign, but maybe the lack of a real domestic challenge could essentially push them out over the next couple of years.
I wouldn't be too worried about Neymar walking out the door. I've got to be honest with you. I think it was a little bit overplayed in terms of his contribution over the past couple of weeks. Those hidden comments, his attitude now, he's totally changed. He's bought in. He's a team player. He's tracking back. He's winning tackles. Well, how old is he? How old is Neymar now, lads? Is he 28 years of age, and the penny's just dropped, but he needs to put a shift in for the team and drop in and make a tackle and track a run. I'm not buying into that. I'm not his biggest fan, to be honest. The fact he actually signed for PSG to begin with is an indication for me in terms of where his priorities lay, in terms of what kind of challenges that he wants in terms of his football and career. Mbappe's a little bit different. He's the key one for me in terms of he's the one that they need to keep going forward. But I'd be hugely surprised, lads. The reasons that you've said, in terms of like the challenge of playing, and no disrespect to the French league, we've seen Lyon play him and play very well. But deep down inside, obviously I can only speak from the outside looking in, there must be, as every year goes by, there must be a little bit of a wrench inside that young fella. When he looks at the Premiership, whether it's La Liga or the Italian league, to go and prove himself in those leagues with the calibre of managers and players, etc., there must be a burning desire to do it. I hope there is anyway. But I think you're right. Neymar, I wouldn't put into that category. I think he's made his decision some years ago in terms of what was important to him, money, profile, all those type of things. But I think Mbappe, I'm hoping, is going to be a little bit different. And I'm hoping at some stage we'll see him make the decision to take a step and prove himself against the very best in the better leagues around Europe.
Kenny, was Neymar's decision not to step out of the shadow of Lionel Messi? If he wanted to put the feet up, would the best decision not for him not to have been to stay in Barcelona, to stay in the shadow of one of the greatest players of all time? He stepped out of that and he put himself more into the spotlight, more under the sort of pressure that comes with a club like Paris Saint-Germain, who had no business winning the Champions League and have these airs about them that they have to go and win this European competition. Like, Neymar made the decision to put himself in there. Does he not deserve some credit for that?
I don't think so, Owen, because we're only speculating. I don't think they were the huge motivations why he went and signed for PSG. I don't think his motivation was, right, I want to go and pick this club up. I want to put this club on my shoulders and I want to take it and establish this club as one of the very best. Almost like it's unselfish thing. You know, it's all about the club. It's not about me. For me, with Neymar, it's always about him. It's always about what's best for him, whether it's a financial point of view or predominantly a financial point of view. I mean, he can't get away from the fact that on PSG went to PSG because they paid him the most money and they were prepared to pay that big transfer fee. I think players, generally speaking, if he wanted to step out of the shadow of Lionel Messi and go and prove himself amongst the best, he goes and challenges himself in a number of those other clubs and those domestic leagues that we're talking about. You know, that's where the best football, the best players, surely the most professional satisfaction comes from proving yourself in those type of environments, not in La Liga. So I understand your point. I just don't think that they were his motivations going there. And it says, I think it gives you an indication, a bit of a window into the kind of psyche, the personality of the player. And there was no surprise again last night, Owens. People talk about real leader in that PSG team, personality. He's a changed man. But when the chips were down in the second half of that game last night, and Bayern began to put their foot down, put the squeeze on PSG, and PSG were looking for a bit of inspiration. There was none coming from Neymar. He went into his shell. His body language was terrible. His chin was down, and he didn't provide that kind of leadership that people were speaking about previously when it really mattered most in the second half of that game last night.
Kenny Cunningham, great stuff as always. Thanks a million for taking the call.
Cheers, lads.